She was the woman no one noticed. An overweight single mother pushing a cleaning cart through polished corporate hallways, hiding a past she could barely bear to remember. Mariah Torres had lost everything once. Her husband, her home, nearly her newborn daughter. She survived on grit alone, stitching her life back together in silence. But on one desperate morning, when a multi-million-dollar deal hung by a thread and the CEO of a major aviation company was seconds from losing everything, Mariah stepped forward. And with 4 quiet words, "I can fly it," the room froze. Fear rippled through her. What if she wasn't ready? What if the sky she once commanded swallowed her whole? What if the nightmares returned? Yet when she gripped the helicopter controls, the world remembered her before she remembered herself, and the CEO who mocked her? He watched in jaw-dropping disbelief as the janitor he underestimated soared like a legend reborn. But the biggest surprise wasn't the flight. It was what came after. When a wounded hero, a terrified mother, and a stubborn CEO discovered that sometimes the sky brings broken people together, and love takes flight where no one expects it. The helicopter sat like a coiled animal on the private helipad, rotors still, glass windows reflecting the Los Angeles skyline. Morning haze clung to the high-rises, softening the edges of downtown, but nothing about Ethan Cole was soft. The 35-year-old CEO of Cole Dynamics paced along the yellow safety line, phone to his ear, jaw tight. His navy suit fit like it had been poured onto him, white dress shirt crisp, tie knotted with military precision. "I don't care what it costs," he snapped into the phone. "I need a helicopter pilot on this roof in 10 minutes, or the biggest contract we've ever chased goes up in smoke." He hung up without waiting for a response. 2 assistants hovered nearby. Riley and Jenna, both under 30, both trying not to look panicked as they darted between calls and emails. The Bell 407 behind them was ready to go. Fuel tank full, keys in the ignition, corporate logo gleaming on the tail boom. The only missing element was someone to fly it. "Any luck?" Ethan barked. Riley flinched. "We've called every charter service from here to Long Beach. Everyone's booked. Our usual pilot is still in the ER, broken wrist. They sent the X-ray." Jenna glanced at her screen. "Backup pilots in San Diego. Even if he leaves now, traffic on the 5... "We don't have time for traffic," Ethan cut in. "AeroCorps wants ink on that contract at 9 sharp. 8-figure deal. They're old school, handshakes, eye contact, no let's push to tomorrow." He stared at the city spreading beneath them, jaw set. This rooftop was supposed to be his shortcut. Instead, it felt like a trap. A metal door clanged open behind them. A woman stepped out, catching her breath in the cool morning air. She wore a gray janitor's uniform, dark hair pulled into a messy bun under a faded ball cap. She was in her mid-30s, heavyset, the kind of plus-size nobody in this building ever expected to see on a helipad. Mariah Torres. She carried a mop bucket in one hand and a bundle of cleaning rags in the other. Her cheeks were flushed from climbing the stairs. "Hey, Ms. Torres." Riley's tone was distracted. "Maintenance isn't supposed to be up here during..." "I heard shouting," Mariah said, her voice low, steady. "And the radio was buzzing about a pilot." Ethan gave her a brief, impatient glance, the kind usually reserved for smudged windows and coffee stains. "We're dealing with a situation. Floors can wait." Mariah swallowed, but didn't step back. "I can fly it," she said. The rooftop went silent for half a beat. Then Jenna laughed. It wasn't kind. The sound bounced off the glass walls and concrete. Riley joined in, nervously, like he wasn't sure if this was a joke, but didn't want to be the only one not laughing. "You What? Jenna shook her head. This isn't Uber, it's a helicopter. Ethan didn't laugh. He just narrowed his eyes, really looking at Mariah for the first time. Gray uniform one size too big, sturdy shoes, calloused hands from scrubbing floors and hauling supplies. She didn't look like a pilot. She looked like a janitor who'd wandered into the wrong movie. You're telling me, he said slowly, that you can fly a Bell 407 corporate helicopter? Yes, sir, Mariah replied. She didn't flinch at the sarcasm. I've flown a lot worse. A strange chill skated down Ethan's spine. Something in the way she said it. Matter of fact, no bravado. Scratched at a buried memory of his older brother's friends before they deployed. That same quiet certainty. And he hated how badly he needed her to be telling the truth. This is insane, Jenna muttered. We're really going to let the cleaning lady play Top Gun? Mariah's gaze flicked to her, then back to Ethan. She'd heard words like that before. Cleaning lady. Big girl. You don't look like you belong here. They didn't sting anymore, not compared to what she'd already survived. Once the world had called her Chief Warrant Officer Torres, United States Army. She'd flown Black Hawks in dust-choked skies, dodging gunfire while evacuating wounded soldiers. She'd done combat extractions with an engine warning light flashing and a bleeding co-pilot beside her. And then one rainy night on the 405, a drunk driver had turned her life into wreckage. Her husband gone in a twisted mass of metal, her baby girl fighting for breath in the NICU. The Army had pinned a medal to her chest and offered condolences. Mariah had taken an honorable discharge and a funeral flag, then walked away from the cockpit and never looked back. Now, 6 years later, she scrubbed toilets in the building where men in suits argued over aircraft she knew better than they did. She worked nights so she could be home when her daughter, Lily, got out of school. She lived paycheck to paycheck, hiding her past like a classified file. And she was so tired of pretending she was nobody. Ethan's mouth curved into a cold, humorless smile. Okay, he said. Here's a deal for you, Torres. Riley shot him a wary look. Sir? If you can fly this helicopter, Ethan said, voice sharp enough to cut steel, I'll marry you. Jenna's jaw dropped. Ethan! The words hung in the air, cruel and ridiculous. The kind of line people repeated later in the break room. You should have seen his face when he said it. Mariah's face didn't move. Not a blush, not a flinch. She just set down her bucket, wiped her hands on her uniform pants, and walked toward the helicopter. Keys are already in it, right? She asked. Ethan felt something shift in his chest as he watched her go. For the first time that morning, he wasn't sure who the real fool on this rooftop was. Mariah adjusted the headset over her ears, her fingers moving with the quiet precision of someone who had once lived inside the cockpit more than she lived on the ground. The Bell 407 rumbled beneath her, the engine warming, rotors beginning their slow, rhythmic spin. She didn't need to think about each switch or gauge. Muscle memory carried her through the sequence as naturally as breathing. Ethan Cole stood just outside the helicopter, rooted in place, watching her like he was seeing a ghost step into his aircraft. The morning wind tugged at his suit jacket, sending the scent of jet fuel swirling around them. Riley whispered behind him, Sir, she's doing everything by the book. That's a military pre-flight. Ethan didn't answer. His body was rigid, shoulders tight, eyes locked on the heavy-set woman in the cleaning uniform who was performing a flawless checklist. It made no sense. It made too much sense. Finally, Mariah glanced at him and tapped the headset mic. Mr. Cole, we're ready for passenger boarding. Passenger, not CEO, Not sir, just a passenger in her aircraft. For reasons he couldn't name, the distinction mattered. Ethan climbed in. The cabin felt tighter today, as if the air was holding its breath. He buckled his harness, trying not to look unnerved. Mariah didn't look at him. She was already scanning the skies, checking airspace clearance with the confidence of someone who had once guided airlift missions through far more dangerous corridors. The rotors thundered. Her voice came through the headset, calm and firm. Lifting off. The helicopter rose smoothly. No hesitation, no wobble, not even the slightest overcorrection. Ethan had flown with dozens of pilots in the corporate world, and only a handful had ever lifted off this cleanly, and none of them had been janitors. Below them, Los Angeles bloomed in unfolding layers. Freeways curving like veins, sunlight glinting off skyscraper glass, the city stretching wide like a restless sleeping giant. Mariah navigated as though she owned the sky. She kept one hand lightly on the cyclic, adjusting altitude with gentle micro-movements that spoke not only of skill, but of something deeper, instinct. She banked left over the Hollywood Hills with the elegance of a dancer turning on satin. Ethan felt the city drop away beneath them, and for the first time all morning, his pulse steadied. "This isn't possible," he muttered. "It's just flying," she replied, voice steady. Helicopters listened to calm hands. He looked at her, really looked. The worn uniform, the tired eyes, the strong arms built not only from scrubbing floors, but from years of gripping a collective in turbulence and combat. This woman didn't fly like someone who used to be good. She flew like someone who'd kept that part of herself locked away, preserved, waiting. "Where'd you learn to do this?" he asked quietly. Mariah kept her eyes forward. "U.S. Army, medevac pilot. Afghanistan. Iraq." The words hit him like a gut punch. He swallowed. "So why are you cleaning offices?" She inhaled, slow, steady. "Because after my husband died, and after months sleeping on hospital floors while my daughter fought for her life, flying stopped feeling like freedom." Her voice didn't break, but something inside it did. "And because this job lets me be home when she wakes up crying, that matters more than anything." Ethan didn't know what to say. CEO training didn't prepare you for the quiet truths of people you'd overlooked. Below them, the Pacific glittered like broken glass. Sunlight washed over the windshield, turning the world gold. "How long has it been since you flew?" he asked softly. 6 years. Until today." He stared. 6 years. And she flew like this? The helicopter descended toward AeroCorps' roof with a landing so gentle, Ethan wondered if gravity had taken the morning off. The skids touched concrete without a single rattle. Mariah powered down the engine, removed her headset, and finally turned to face him. "You made a joke," she said quietly. "People laughed. I didn't." "Mariah, I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know. People aren't always what you think they are." She opened the door and stepped onto the helipad, sunlight catching the edges of her uniform, her silhouette no longer small or invisible, but unmistakably powerful. Ethan stayed frozen in the passenger seat, a single realization settling in his chest. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about contracts or profits or deadlines. He was thinking about her. The office tower felt like a different world after 10 p.m. Lights dimmed, hallways quiet, the buzz of daytime urgency replaced with the soft hum of AC vents and the distant whoosh of elevators settling for the night. Ethan Cole rarely stayed this late, but ever since that flight, sleep had become a stranger. His mind kept replaying the way Mariah's hands moved on the controls, the quiet certainty in her voice, the truth she'd spoken about survival. He needed answers, or maybe he just needed to understand her. He found himself wandering the 27th floor, half pretending to check financial reports on his tablet. But the truth was simpler. He knew the night shift cleaning crew usually passed through around now. He told himself he wasn't waiting for her. But when he turned the corner and saw Mariah wiping down a long stretch of glass wall, he stopped walking. She didn't notice him at first. Her movements were deliberate and steady. Even in a gray uniform and tired shoes, she carried herself like someone who had spent years holding other people's lives in her hands. Then he saw her daughter. A little girl, maybe 6 or 7, curled up on a nearby bench with a pink unicorn blanket and a second-hand tablet resting on her knees. Her curly dark hair spilled across the cushion. She wasn't asleep. She was drawing, little helicopters sketched in purple crayon. Mariah looked over. "Lily, baby, it's time for your snack." Lily hopped off the bench, chubby cheeks flushed with excitement. "I made this one for you, Mommy." She held up a drawing, 2 stick figures inside a helicopter, one with a ponytail, one with a cape. At that moment, she spotted Ethan. Her eyes widened. "Mommy, is that your boss?" Mariah stiffened. "Lily, don't bother Mr. Cole." But Lily walked straight toward him, holding up her drawing like a peace treaty. "This is you," she said proudly. "You're wearing a superhero cape because Mommy saved you." Ethan studied the picture. The proportions were wild, the colors chaotic, but the message hit him harder than he expected. Mariah hurried forward, embarrassed. "I'm so sorry, she shouldn't—" "No," he interrupted softly. "She's very talented." Lily beamed. "Mommy used to fly real helicopters, big ones. She saved people. Daddy said she was a hero. Before he—" The little girl's voice softened. "Before he went to heaven." Mariah's face tightened with old grief. "Lily, sweet girl. Why don't you get your crackers from my bag?" Lily nodded and skipped away. For a long moment, it was just the two of them standing under the low hallway light. Ethan cleared his throat. "You bring her with you often?" "Whenever childcare falls through," Mariah said. "This job lets me do that. You never asked for accommodations. I've never asked for anything." Her voice was quiet, protective. He hesitated. "Why didn't you tell us who you were?" "Because it's not who I am anymore." He frowned. "But you were decorated. You saved lives." "And then I lost one," she whispered. Something in her eyes, pain, regret, the weight of choices she couldn't undo, hit Ethan harder than he expected. "My husband," she continued softly. "A drunk driver hit us on the 405. They pulled Lily out alive. They couldn't save him. And I couldn't go back to flying. Not with her needing me. Not with nightmares still in the cockpit." Ethan felt his throat tighten. He had fought tooth and nail for every inch of success he had, but nothing in his world, no merger, no negotiation, came close to the kind of resilience she carried quietly every day. "Mariah," he said gently, "you're not invisible. Not anymore." She looked away, blinking hard. "That's the problem. When people start seeing you, they can start hurting you." Ethan didn't know what possessed him, but the words slipped out with an honesty he didn't expect. "Then let someone see you who won't." Mariah froze, not because she believed him, but because hope was the most dangerous emotion she owned. Before either of them could speak again, Lily trotted back, crackers in hand. She slipped her small fingers into her mother's. Mariah straightened her shoulders. "Thank you, Mr. Cole. But I've learned not to expect anything from anyone." Ethan watched them walk away, the janitor and her daughter, realizing with a painful jolt that he wanted to be the exception to that rule. 2 nights later, the building was silent again. But this time, Ethan wasn't wandering aimlessly. He knew exactly where he was going. He'd spent the last 48 hours replaying everything Mariah had told him, and everything she hadn't. He couldn't get the image of her in the cockpit out of his mind. Strong hands steady on the controls, eyes focused, heart unshakable. A woman built from courage no resume could capture. And yet she mopped floors for people who barely remembered her name. Tonight, something felt wrong the moment he stepped onto the 24th floor. The hallway lights flickered faintly, and for a second, Ethan wondered if the building was glitching again. Then he heard it. Not the sound of cleaning equipment, not Lily's little giggles. A soft, broken sound. Someone crying. Ethan followed it, turning the corner toward the simulation training bay, a dusty room that housed old flight rigs no one used anymore. There, on the floor beside the door, sat Lily, knees tucked to her chest, tears streaking down her cheeks. Ethan's heart lurched. He knelt beside her. "Hey, sweetheart, what happened? Are you hurt?" Lily shook her head, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "Mommy's inside." Ethan's breath caught. "Is she okay?" "She had a dream about Daddy," Lily whispered. "A bad one. She told me to wait here, but she's crying. Mommy never cries." Ethan's chest tightened. He gently brushed her hair out of her face. "You did the right thing staying here with me." He rose slowly and looked through the glass window of the bay. Mariah sat inside one of the old simulators, head in her hands, shoulders shuddering in a way that broke something inside him. Her uniform shirt clung damply to her back. The cockpit lights illuminated her face just enough for him to see the anguish she kept buried from the world. Before he could second-guess himself, Ethan opened the door and stepped inside. Mariah jerked upright, wiping her face quickly. "Mr. Cole, I didn't know." Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry." "You have nothing to apologize for," he said gently. She tried to stand, but her legs gave slightly, and she sat back down. "I'm fine. I just needed a minute." Ethan didn't move closer, not wanting to push her, but his voice softened. "Mariah, talk to me." She stared at the dark simulator screens. "I used to be in control," she whispered. "Even when everything was falling apart around me. Up there in the real sky, I always knew what to do." Her breath trembled. And then one night, I didn't. She pressed a shaking hand to her forehead. "The crash wasn't my fault, but try telling that to a heart that's already cracked. I lost him. I almost lost her. And when I looked at my daughter in the NICU, barely breathing, her voice broke again. I promised I'd never put her through that fear again. Never." Ethan's own voice was barely audible. "You walked away from flying to protect her." "I walked away because I couldn't trust myself anymore," Mariah said. "How could I fly again when I couldn't even save my own family?" A long silence settled. Heavy, raw, honest. Finally, Ethan stepped closer. "You're wrong." Mariah looked up, confused. "You didn't fail your family. Life failed you," he said, each word steady with conviction. "You walked through hell carrying a child in your arms. You rebuilt her world from scratch. And then you came into mine and flew a helicopter after 6 years like it was nothing." Her eyes filled again, but not with the same grief. Something gentler. Something scared to be hopeful. "And you weren't just a pilot," Ethan continued. "You were extraordinary." Mariah's voice wavered. "Why are you saying all this?" Because somebody should have told you a long time ago, he said quietly. At that moment, Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Mommy? Mariah immediately stood, gathering her daughter into her arms. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Ethan watched them, mother and child wrapped in each other, and it hit him with startling clarity. He didn't want to protect them because he pitied them. He wanted to protect them because somewhere along the way, they had become the most important part of his life. Mariah noticed him watching and looked away, embarrassed. Thank you for being here. Always, he said before he could stop himself. Mariah froze, not because she believed him, but because for the first time in years she wanted to. The sun burned low over the horizon, staining the Los Angeles skyline in shades of gold and fire as Ethan stepped onto the rooftop helipad. The helicopter sat in its usual spot, sleek and quiet, its rotors still. He wasn't here for a flight. He was here because everything in his life had shifted, because Mariah Torres and her daughter had carved out a place inside him he hadn't realized was empty. It had been only a week since the night in the simulation room, but something inside Ethan had changed permanently. He saw Mariah everywhere now, not just in Janitor's scrubs pushing a cart, but in her past. A soldier, a pilot, a mother who had rebuilt her life from rubble. And him? He was a man who had spent years building a tower of ambition so high he could barely see the ground beneath him. He didn't want to be alone at the top anymore. He wanted them there with him. But first, he had to face the person who'd built that tower, his father. Thomas Cole arrived at the office unannounced the next morning, storming in with the authority of a man who had once run the company with an iron fist. His steel-gray hair was neatly combed, his tailored suit sharp, his voice sharp enough to cut brick. "We need to talk," he barked. Ethan set down his pen. "About what?" "About the janitor." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Dad, you think I don't know what goes on in my own building?" Thomas slammed a folder onto the desk. "You let some cleaning woman fly our helicopter. And what's worse, you're seeing her. People are talking." Ethan's jaw clenched. "She's a decorated army pilot, a medevac hero." "She's a liability," Thomas hissed. "She has a child, she has baggage, and she's not stepping one foot into this family." Ethan stood slowly, fury simmering under every word. "You don't get to decide that." Thomas leaned in, voice dropping into a warning growl. "I built this company from nothing. I built our name. And I will not watch you throw it all away over someone who saved lives?" Ethan snapped. "Over someone who raised a daughter alone while carrying grief most people would crumble under? Over someone who has more strength in her than half the world?" His father's eyes went cold. "You're making a mistake." Ethan didn't blink. "Then I'll make it proud." Thomas stared at him, really stared, and for the first time in Ethan's adult life, he saw fear flicker beneath the man's armor. Fear of losing control. Fear of being wrong. But Ethan was already done being controlled. "If you force me to choose," Ethan said quietly, "I'll choose her." The silence that followed was icy. Then Thomas Cole turned and walked out without a word. A day later, Ethan found an envelope shoved under his apartment door. Inside was a handwritten note. "You were right. I judged a woman I did not know. I'm sorry, and I'm proud of you." Dad Ethan let out a shaky breath, chest tight with relief. Then he knew exactly where he needed to be. Mariah found him on the rooftop that evening, standing beside the helicopter, the wind pulling lightly at his shirt. She looked tired but beautiful, hair loose from her bun, cheeks warm from a long shift. She smiled cautiously. "You asked me to meet you up here?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah, I needed to show you something." Before she could respond, he dropped to one knee. Mariah gasped, actually gasped, and covered her mouth with both hands. The sunset bathed her in orange light, making her look like she belonged up here, closer to the sky that once defined her. Ethan held up a small silver ring, simple but elegant, etched with two tiny wings. "I don't want the person who saved me on that rooftop to ever feel invisible again," he said, voice steady. "I don't care about titles. I don't care about gossip. I care about you and Lily." Mariah's eyes flooded with tears. "I used to chase the sky," she whispered. "I never thought I'd find a home instead." Ethan smiled softly. "Then let's build one, together." Her yes came out broken, choked, beautiful. Lily burst from behind a ventilation unit, her hiding spot, with a bouquet of mismatched flowers. "Does this mean he's going to be my dad?" Mariah laughed through tears. "If you want him to be." Lily nodded so hard her curls bounced. "Yes!" The three of them climbed into the helicopter, Mariah in the pilot's seat for the first time in years, Ethan beside her, Lily in the back with her drawings pressed to her chest. Mariah took a breath. Then she lifted them into the sky, not running from the past, but flying toward a future they were finally ready to claim.